be a school for you to have children. So the guy, he turns pale and he says, I can't believe you just saw this letter, because I am the child born to this person who that letter was written to. And of course he handed him that Sefer Nigros. The guy was able to take it home. But the thing is the learning of, just to bring out this little point, is that this learning was something that was kvias itim v'nishmasim, because all of us, of course, we all have busy schedules and everybody in their Indian, but whenever the few minutes are that we find the time to be able to remember what we learned in the morning, in the middle of the day, by night, to be able to live a little bit with it. Also about the learning, just to bring examples about his devotion and learning, only because things that we could learn a lesson from, is that besides his own kvius in learning in Chitas Rambam, but for many, many years he used to be mishtatif and go every single night to the Shir Rambam. I don't know if it still exists there on Kingston Avenue, there by the Kingston Shul, the 770. He used to go there for a half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it was. He would push with mishtatif to listen into the Shir. It was something, he left the house, whatever it was, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, left for a half hour, 40 minutes, came back. Years later, there was a couple of many years, I don't know, at least 5 years I would say for sure, where there was a number of people that were in Crown Heights that never had the chance to learn Torah when they were younger, and it was harder for them to understand the Rambam. There wasn't the Chayenu and what else was available. And he used to give a shir in Perek Echad Rambam every single night in the back of our house for many years. It was actually an amazing thing. The people would come, go straight to the back room. He would just come into the room, give the shir, whatever it was, a half hour, and he didn't stay around stam to bullshit, but he gave his time to learn with other people, which wasn't besides his own time and his kids' time, and so on and so forth. Another one thing about the learning was that you could only imagine that a person in business, that comes Friday night, by the meals, people fall asleep by the table. It was something that never existed in our house. He never would fall asleep in the middle of a Shabbos meal, never. I don't remember ever seeing that. But after the Shabbos meal, there used to be a shir in our basement every single Friday night after the meal. Try to imagine yourself doing that. Maybe you do it, I don't know. Just something that's worthwhile to mention, that just devoted to the cause, to doing this. He went every single Friday night. My mother would prepare tea and plate a cake, and a bunch of people on the block would come. We called it a block shir. So just devotion in these inyanim. I mentioned something about just one nekuda about some of these things that Taka mentioned in the book, where it's a time of a yard site where we chazer over things that of a person's life, because it says on a yard site all the things of the person's life comes together on that day. So as a businessman, he was very devoted also in Hafatza, and there was just sharing this little story about Hafatza, that he was involved also with printing of Tanyas. He wanted that the schus to be involved, and there was many years that he was doing business in Nigeria, and there was a lot of traveling involved and going there, and it's far and hard and so on and so forth. But there was a point then that he wanted to print a Tanya there, and he wrote through I think it was through Benjamin Klein, that asked that he wants to make that he asked the Shiloh from B'Shem, my father, if he should print a Tanya in Nigeria, because all the people who did business there was a bunch of black people, Goyim, and is the Rebbe's kavanah to print a Tanya there? And the Rebbe erased im hakavana. That's not if. It's not if. But the Rebbe changed it to ba'im yesh al kalpanim Yehudi echad. If there's at least one Jew that lives there, there's already an Indian, you should taka do it and print the Tanya there. And of course he went and he printed the Tanya there. Just an Indian of where we could maybe learn from everyone in their way in Hafatza this way. I just want to conclude with one anecdote about a menschlichkeit, besides of the holy parts of him, but also as a simple menschliche kind of human being. And I actually never knew the story before, but I read it in the book. One of my sisters said the story that when their moving truck came and was loading their apartment into the truck to move on to Shlichus, so my father came, to watch. They were moving. It was a simcha. They're moving on Shlichus, and he saw that the Goyim were schlepping and schwitzing, and he disappeared from the scene. He came back 10 minutes later with coffee and donuts for each one of the workers. So it sounds like a simple thing, but it's a menschliche thing, and menschlichkeit, goes together with the whole thing. When you really learn and you go in the Rebbe's ways and the ways of Torah and mitzvahs and Chassidischkeit, it obviously has to permeate in our menschlichkeit, in our day-to-day life, and respect for other people and for the Goyim and for whoever it is in every area. And let us hope that this should be the last time to celebrate, to have the yard site. Genug is genug, and we should already have the Skalos. Maybe also.
Sauber.